Senior Bowl practice begins today. Why this is a big week for Tyreke Smith, Haskell Garrett, and Jeremy Ruckert down in Mobile, Alabama. And we will be unveiling our projected depth chart for the defense for Ohio State in 2022. All that and more right here on Locked on Buckeyes.
You are Locked on Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked on Buckeyes for the Locked on Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Tuesday, February 1st in the year 2022, and I want to thank every person out there for making Locked on Buckeyes their first listen of every single day. The podcast is available on all platforms, and it is free. Think about the emotions or the level of anxiety that you feel before going into a job interview. May it be the first interview, may it be the second interview, may it be in person, or may it be virtual. Just think about that level of anxiety, those emotions, the thoughts, everything that happens between the time that the interview is scheduled until the interview is started and maybe even completed. That anxiety is not normal. The emotions aren't normal. Your palms might be sweating. Your forehead might be sweating. You might be stuttering over your words, the thing that Jay does pretty frequently here over the podcast. There are so many things that happen before you go into an interview. May it be your first job or the biggest job you've ever applied for. But then put your shoes in players like Jeremy Ruckert, Haskell Garrett, Tyreke Smith, where their interview is completely different than any interview you or I will ever go through. Not only do they have to look at and play well in practice, Senior Bowl practice this week, which starts today and then Wednesday and then Thursday, and then the game is on Saturday. They had official weigh-ins and measurements on Monday, but they also have game film. Many of these guys, actually all three of them, are multi-year starters. And so for them, their job interview is not just this week. It's also all of those games that they have played while at the Ohio State University. This is a big deal. Senior Bowl practice, yes, you and I will watch it. You will watch the game on Saturday. We'll look and see how these players are playing. Look at seeing how, looking to hear how they do based off of some of the reports that come from Senior Bowl practice. All of those things are great, but this is a job interview, a very intense job interview. Day one is complete with the measurements and the height, weight, measurement of your hands, things of that nature. But then they put the pads on today. They put that Ohio State helmet on once again today. And executives, scouts, coaches, they'll all be there watching these three young men. Senior Bowl practice is amazing. This is an amazing thing that not only do you get to go through the interview process and talk to all of these coaches and executives face to face, but also you get to do what you love, which is perform. A lot of the interviews that I've gone through, and maybe you have gone through, you don't get to perform your job during the interview. But these three young men, they're literally performing their job during the interview. The measurements that came through, these are all official measurements that were released on Monday. You can check my Twitter page if you have not checked that, at JSteven07. I retweeted these yesterday. I'll go over the height and weight very quickly. Jeremy Ruckert came in at 6'5", 250 pounds. Tyreke Smith, 6'3", 245 pounds. Haskell Garrett, 6'1", 298 pounds. The one that was a little alarming to me was Tyreke Smith. I did not think he was that light. I thought he was at least 255, but the 245 is light, especially for someone that has limited production while at the Ohio State University. Last year, there were 5 Buckeyes that went to the Senior Bowl: Tuff Borland, Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper, Justin Hilliard, and Trey Sermon. Hilliard and Borland were the only only 2 from that group of 5 that did not get drafted. Trey Sermon lifted his draft stock. I believe Jonathan Cooper lifted his draft stock as well in this moment. And for guys like Ruckert, Tyreke Smith, and Haskell Garrett, that none of them are looked at to be a surefire first-round pick. None of them are looked to be a surefire, definite second-round pick. Some might be looked at in second-round mock drafts by some people. Those are all speculation. Nobody knows definitively what's going to happen. All 3 of these gentlemen can raise their draft stock during this week. I looked at the PFF grades, Pro Football Focus grades for all 3 of these gentlemen as far as like big board NFL draft, where these guys are slotted in. Jeremy Ruckert came in at number 87. Tyreke Smith came in at number 118. And then Haskell Garrett came in at number 122. I think one thing that knocks Jeremy Ruckert playing tight end is production. He got a lot of looks, a lot of time blocking, not much time catching the ball. There was time later in the season they threw the ball his way. There were a few key drops. Actually, a drop is never wise or amazing, but there were a few drops that he had in that moment. Tyreke Smith, his size, I think 245 playing defensive end, unless he's going to be in a 2-point stance on the outside, that's a little bit different. But then you need to be able to have the leverage, be very versatile. Still wondering where Tyreke Smith slots in as a defensive end or even a 3-4 outside linebacker type in the NFL. I'm still up in the air about that. We'll just see how practice goes for him this week down in Mobile, Alabama. Then Haskell Garrett, one thing that derailed him last year was simply his health. He was not healthy a lot of the season, had a lot of nicks and dings that kept him out of a few games. Just like other Ohio State Buckeyes, he was not the only one that got hit with the injury bug that bug didn't allow him to be as productive as he wanted it to be. But this is Senior Bowl practice. This is a huge, huge interview. If I'm any of these 3 gentlemen, I'm not them, but if I were them, I would be nervous. But once I put them pads on, those nerves might go away because I'm doing that thing that I've been doing my entire life, playing football. I'm comfortable with those shoulder pads on. I'm comfortable with that helmet on. I'm comfortable doing all of these things on the field consecutively over and over and over. I'm fine with all of these reps. I'm fine doing this thing that I love. Senior Bowl practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Once again, the game is Saturday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. All 3 of these gentlemen are on the same team. They're on the national team, which will be coached by the New York Jets. You know, the Senior Bowl, of course, it's seniors. Olave and Thayer Munford both declined offers to play in the Senior Bowl, but that's fine. Let's focus on these 3 gentlemen that'll be down in Alabama performing in front of scouts, executives, and NFL coaches. It's the job interview, and I believe all 3 young men will do a phenomenal job during the biggest job interview of their life. You are tapped into Locked On Buckeyes here on a Tuesday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. For those of you that are on the YouTube, thank you so much. Keep hitting that subscribe button. Keep hitting that bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live, as well as hitting the like button on this video and on every video that is on this channel. Hop in the chat, hop in the comment section, leave comments. They're fun, they're enjoyable. You guys do a phenomenal job of engaging back and forth, and let's keep that going. Audio listeners, hit that follow button so you're following this podcast. Make sure you are right by your phone because you'll also be alerted every time a new podcast is uploaded. Apple Podcast listeners, make sure, just a quick reminder, hit that 5-star review and hit that little comment section down there. Leave a 5-star review and a rating. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. From the Senior Bowl, which is going on right now, to projecting what next year's depth chart will look like on the defense. We went over the defense last week, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to lay the groundwork for what Ohio State's defense will look like. Now, I understand that Ohio State had a 4 defensive linemen last year. I am anticipating throughout most games that Ohio State will only have 3 defensive linemen and a Leo hybrid linebacker. So I want to give you 12 positions. A little bit different than what normal, only because I do think adding another defensive end for teams like Wisconsin, Iowa, maybe even Minnesota every now and then that are going to have that a heavy offensive line personnel grouping, I think you need to know about who's going to be the other player that is going to be there. And so at one defensive end for Ohio State starting, Zach Harrison, I think that's why he returned. I don't think Zach Harrison's draft stock would be high right now. And so I do think him returning to Ohio State for another year is wise. Backing him up will be Jack Sawyer. Now, this is going to be interesting because I have Jack Sawyer in a couple positions. We'll explain that here in a little bit. But Zach Harrison backing him up will be Jack Sawyer. At the other defensive end position, which will be JT Tuamaloa, I honestly think JTT will actually battle Zach Harrison as far as that starting defensive end spot, because I think JTT going through a full offseason, getting his body right, properly ready for a college football season via the strength and conditioning program at The Ohio State University. I think Zach Harrison, if he does not actually step up in a big way, he could find himself not playing all that much and having JT Tuamaloa take his spot. Backing him up will be Tyler Friday. I do believe Tyler Friday will be back in full strength by the beginning of fall camp. And then also Caden Curry backing him up as well. Third, I think a lot of people said Caden Curry was a defensive tackle. I've watched him play football numerous times. He's 250. In high school, he could play inside and outside. I don't see Caden Curry, especially in this defense, playing interior. I think he'll be on the outside of that, on the outside defensive end position looking in. The two defensive tackle spots, I do believe, will be Jerron Cage and then also Teron Vincent. Backing Teron Vincent up will be Tyreke Williams, who will be competing for a starting spot, but I do not think Tyreke Williams will be there. Backing up Jerron Cage will be Ty Hamilton. Keep your eyes out for Noah Potter. Don't think Noah Potter will be a starter. However, I do think Noah Potter, with the injuries and the emergency eye surgery he had last year, I do think Noah Potter this offseason could find himself in the rotation at Ohio State, not starting, but simply in the rotation as a Buckeye. So once again, a little recap. Starting defensive ends, if we go 4 D-line set, JT Tuamaloa and Zach Harrison. If it's a 3 D-line set, Zach Harrison's the only defensive end. 2 starting D tackles, Teron Vincent and Jerron Cage. Remember, there's a hybrid linebacker position that's new this year versus last year. Go back to last week's episode, What is a Leo? Great breakdown of what it is that Leo position is. Starting at the Leo position, I have Cade Stover. I think that Cade Stover, what he did in the Rose Bowl was phenomenal. And yesterday in Ryan Day's presser, he mentioned that Cade Stover wants to stick on defense, partly because I think Jim Knowles wants Cade Stover to play on defense. I have no problem with it. None whatsoever. I think Cade Stover is a phenomenal piece. I think I would have loved to see him play the defense a lot more during his time while at Ohio State. But this is where we are. Cade Stover, Leo position hybrid linebacker, backing him up. Here's where things get interesting. I think Jack Sawyer backing up Cade Stover is perfect. Is absolutely perfect. Now, he has to work on his hips and has to work on coverage and dropping back into coverage and being not only at the D-line depth, but also at the linebacker depth, being at a 2-point stance at the A-gap or B-gap. These are all things he needs to work on. I think Cade Stover has that starting spot on lock. I think Jack Sawyer is another one that could be backing him up. And then right there with him, battling for that backup Leo position spot, Javonte Jean-Baptiste. I don't think JBB or JJB. Don't know why I said J. I put JBB on my paper. Javonte Jean-Baptiste. I do think that's more ideal for him. I don't see him playing defensive end. I think he's too light, too small. I think that Leo hybrid is perfect, ideal for him. Once again, got to work on the hips, moving them, opening them up, keeping them loose. The 2-point stance will be absolutely new. But I think Javonte Jean-Baptiste and Jack Sawyer will be battling out to be the backup Leo linebacker for the Ohio State University. At the weak side linebacker position, I believe this is still Chambers' position on lock. I think that his 1 year as a linebacker last year, starting a few games, seeing the progression, seeing how he went from not playing defense since high school, playing a running back, and then when he came on, oh, wow, he's quick. He reads and reacts very quickly. He has the instincts that you want a linebacker to have. Now, granted, he was not perfect. Nobody on that defense was perfect last year. So this is fine. Still Chambers at weak side linebacker. That is his spot. I do think the middle linebacker spot, I was up in the air about this. And we are on, this is February 1st. This might even alter before fall camp because I do think I might have an alteration or two. But I got Cody Simon, middle linebacker, starting for Ohio State. I think Simon and Chambers worked very, very well together. I know Eichenberg had a phenomenal 17-game performance during the Rose Bowl. I'm up in the air about this one. This was one that I battled with over and over and over, even though it could be 1A, 1B. Right now, I'm going Simon because I think he's more versatile for what Ohio State needs at that spot. I think Eichenberg's limitations are legit limitations. I got Eichenberg backing him up. I got Taraja Mitchell backing up Steel Chambers. And then one person at the middle linebacker position that I think we all need to keep our eyes on is Reed Carrico. Now, granted, he's young, didn't get the time on the field that Eichenberg or Simon got last year. But keep your eyes on Reed Carrico. I do believe that's a gentleman that'll be in the running for that backup spot. Now, granted, I just mentioned 3 guys at the middle linebacker. Only one's going to be on the field. You will get me going crazy if we get more of this nonsense where we're playing all of these guys on defense. We're not doing that again. No. Get the nonsense out of here. We're not doing that again. But what we can do is watch these guys, see their progression, see how they go. Simon at middle linebacker. Little recap before we go close out this segment. Starting defensive ends in a 4D line set. JT Tuamaloau and Zach Harrison. Zach Harrison 1, JT Tuamaloau number 2. The starting defensive tackles, Teron Vincent, Jerron Cage. Starting Leo linebacker hybrid position, Cade Stover. Starting Will linebacker, Still Chambers. Starting middle linebacker, Cody Simon. If there is only the 3 down linemen and then a Leo linebacker, JTT will not be on the field. That will be Zach Harrison's spot. We're done with the front 7. Yeah, the front of the defense. When we come back, we will go over the secondary. Little fun we're going to have with that one right here on Locked on Buckeyes. You are tuned in to Locked on Buckeyes here on a Tuesday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Come back tomorrow. We're planning on getting a little report from Senior Bowl practice. Talk to Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints. He is down there in Mobile, Alabama, looking to get a report on Tyreke Smith, Jeremy Ruckert, and Haskell Garrett after day 1 of Senior Bowl practice. We went through a lot in that last segment. I hope you took some notes and you're kind of making your own little depth chart about what you think Ohio State's starting lineup will look like. Well, now a little bit different because we talked about this last week. Jim Knowles is going to have 2 corners and 3 safeties, 2 regular cornerbacks. You might know who's going to be there. And then 3 safeties, 2 strong safeties, 1 free safety. You may look at some publications or different places out there that are trying to use this as the same type of terminology that might be normal out there. Jim Knowles is probably going to utilize 2 strong safeties, 1 free safety, and 2 corners. And their lineup and how they looked on the field last year at Oklahoma State. Go back to last week. We went over it very well, talking about what Ohio State's new defense will look like. So 1 starting corner back, Cam Brown, kind of goes without saying. He came back to Ohio State for another season. He is planning on playing next year, and I do believe he came back knowing he was going to be a starter at the Ohio State University. The other corner back, Denzel Burke. Solid, solidified. Nothing changing there. Yesterday, during Ryan Day's press conference, he talked about Sevyn Banks. He has a meeting set up with Sevyn Banks and his family to talk about Sevyn Banks' future. It does look like Sevyn Banks' playing days at the Ohio State University, they're over. Which is why, when it comes to the backups, I was looking at Sevyn Banks being a backup. I think he realized, I don't want to be a backup, and I just don't know if I want to go ahead and transfer to another school. So 1 cornerback backup, Jordan Hancock. The other cornerback backup is Jacqueline Johnson. When it comes to the safety positions, at free safety, I believe he'll be healthy, fully healthy. Josh Proctor. I believe Josh Proctor fully healthy, even at last year's defense. A lot of the stuff that happened against Oregon was probably going to happen because the front was just going to do what the front was going to do. I do think that some other hiccups that we saw along the way with the defense that Ohio State has. I think that if Josh Proctor is out there, he kind of controls a lot of the chaos and the issues that the defense has, especially with a lot of new guys playing on the field. So Josh Proctor starting at free safety, backing him up will not be Bryson Shaw. I have Lathan Ransom. I think Lathan Ransom should have been back there at free safety last year. I didn't really like him so much at the cover safety position, nickel cornerback. I'm not saying he did a terrible job. I just think that with the personnel that Ohio State has, I do think that Lathan Ransom could and probably should have been the backup or really last year's free safety once Josh Proctor went down. At one strong safety position, Tanner McAllister. He comes from Oklahoma State, follows Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State to Columbus, to Ohio State. And I do believe he's only coming because he knows he's going to start. I mean, he watched Ohio State film. Jim Knowles watched Ohio State film. You and I know a lot about what goes on at Ohio State day in and day out. But so do these players around the country. They look at the secondary and they're like, what's going on with Ohio State? They normally have all these DBs. They normally have all of these guys that are on top of their game, and this is not it. Tanner McAllister, one starting strong safety, the other starting strong safety, Ronnie Hickman. One of the bright spots, one of the huge bright spots for Ohio State last year, Ronnie Hickman. I do believe that Hickman has the other strong safety spot down. When it comes to the backup strong safety spots, one backup strong safety, Cam Martinez. The other backup strong safety, Lathan Ransom. Remember, just like yesterday, I'm not all about having to have 11 starters and 11 backups. I will put the best player there. I think Lathan Ransom backing up Proctor or even backing up Hickman is ideal. It's perfectly fine. I am not the biggest fan of Bryson Shaw. I reserved a lot of my comments about Bryson Shaw on purpose. I think he was serviceable at times last year. I just don't think he's the best piece at Ohio State to play that free safety position. So Lathan Ransom, if Lathan Ransom is not there, it's Court Williams backing up Ronnie Hickman, but I do believe it's going to be Lathan Ransom, the best option to back up Hickman and to back up Josh Proctor at the Ohio State University. A little recap for the starters. Now I'm going to go through the backups. A little recap of the starters for Ohio State. If there is a 4 defensive lineman front, JT Tuimoloau and Zach Harrison will be the starting defensive ends. If Ohio State is doing the same defensive front that we saw Oklahoma State last year, what we talked about last week, Zach Harrison is the starting defensive end. Then you're going to have Teron Vincent and then also Jerron Cage. Starting Leo hybrid linebacker, Cade Stover. Starting weak side linebacker, Still Chambers. Starting middle linebacker, Cody Simon. Starting corner, Cam Brown. Starting at the other corner, Denzel Burke. Starting free safety, Josh Proctor. Starting at one strong safety spot, Tanner McAllister. Starting at the other strong safety spot, Mr. Ronnie Hickman. That's a lot. Take it in. Rewatch it 2, 3, 4 times. Re-listen to it 2, 3, 4 times. If you want to go ahead and break down your own depth chart, be my guest. Leave it in the comment section. Perfectly fine with me. There's a lot going on, and I do believe this is ideal for Ohio State right now. Guys, we're out of here for the day. Make sure you tune in tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday for everything you need to know about The Ohio State University.